Okay, so we're looking at the Canvas page, or I'm looking at Canvas and I'm looking at my dashboard. And I can see the MACT 160M class. You'll probably have more classes visible on your dashboard, but for me, it's just this one class. So I'll start by opening up in it. And when you start, prior to every class, I recommend that the first thing you do is go to Canvas, open up this class, and go to the home page. And from the home page here, you'll be able to access the Zoom meeting. You can check out the class calendar or the school calendar. If you need to download the home learning edition of the Mastercam software, it's available here. Here's a location, or here's a place where you can pick up computers at an affordable price. Here's a link to a list of videos for previous semesters. So every project that we've worked on, or every project that I've worked on in this class for the last 2 semesters, the recordings of those lectures are available to you here. So you'll also find those videos inside of the project pages for each of our projects. So what I'll do here is I'll go to module 1. And under module 1, you'll see multiple drill projects. We're going to start the night off with drill project 1, and it's a discussion. So if you click on it, it opens up the page for drill project 1. And right away, you'll see an engineering drawing for a pretty basic part. It's a rectangular part with some holes drilled in it. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to generate a model, a three-dimensional model of this part using the Mastercam software. And then we're going to do a few other things to prepare for creating the toolpaths. Now we're going to go kind of slow tonight because this is the first time that a lot of you have even seen this software, and the concept or the processes that we're going to use might be new to you. So this is an introductory class, and we're going to go very, very slow for the first several projects. If you get hung up on something, feel free to ask. I'll gladly help you out. Don't panic if you fall behind, because I'm recording everything. And there are previous recordings of what I did the past few semesters. So not much is going to change. And what I recommend that you do is work along with me the best that you can right now. And then later on tomorrow, the following day, if you have time over the weekend, redo the project. And if you have to rewatch the video, that would be a good thing for you guys to do, especially when you first start learning this software. So this is the engineering drawing that we're going to use to build the part. I'm going to come back to this. I want to visit a few other things on this page. So first thing you'll see underneath the engineering drawing, recorded lectures from the spring 2021 semester. What I'm going to do tonight is already available to you with this video right here. So here's a recorded lecture from February 4th, 2021. So this is back in the spring semester. We started here and we work on it we get to a good stopping point. We ran out of time, and then we continue with the following video. And then on the third video, we complete this project, and you can see that the project, or this third video, is only 7 minutes long. So in all, this is probably 4.5 hours worth of videos. Like I was saying last class, if I were to actually model up this part and generate the toolpaths, it would take me about 15 minutes, maybe less. But what's going on with these particular videos is I'm being very descriptive about what I'm doing, the things that I'm creating, and I'm also explaining the interface of the Mastercam software. So we'll basically do the same thing tonight. And if for whatever reason you want to move forward this weekend, you can watch these videos to take you to the next step. Here's a video that demonstrates a few of the drilling operations that we will use to drill the holes in project 1 through drill project 4. We'll watch this in a moment. I just wanted to explain the project page. Here are some instructions. I'm going to follow these instructions step by step, and then you'll see the workflow that we're going to use, or the workflow that I like to present to the class. So modeling drill project 1, that's what we're going to do here in a little bit. We're going to follow these steps, and I'll explain these steps as we go through them. Here's a screen capture of a level manager. I'll talk about this here in a little bit. So through step 12, we model up the part. And then after that, we start creating the toolpaths. And I've got it identified here, creating toolpaths, drill project 1. And here's some information that we'll use when it comes time to create the toolpaths. At the very bottom, I have a tool list, and these are the tools that we're going to use to drill these holes in this part. There's actually going to be 2 operations, 2 tools. So tool number 1, this will be a 1/2-inch diameter spot drill. And here's some additional information that we'll be using. And then tool 2, it's the drill of the correct diameter for the hole that's called out on the blueprint. So I'll talk more about this once we get to it. And the last thing you'll see on the page, if you would like to download a PDF version of the engineering drawing that's at the very top, that's available to you down here. And some people like to have the like to have the engineering drawing open. It's not a bad idea. I actually can zoom in and out of a PDF better than I can the Zoom page. So there'll be times when I'll open up the PDF and I'll work from the PDF instead of the image that's provided on the Zoom page. So it's a quick introduction to drill project 1. Before I move on, are there any questions that you guys might have? All right. Corey, are you there? Anybody there?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, so everyone's got an image on their profile except for me. So it's hard to tell if I'm talking to dead space or if you guys are actually there. So I do appreciate a little bit of feedback from time to time. Just lets me know that you guys are still there.
We're alive.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so that's an introduction to the project page. And what I'll do is I'll toggle back and forth between the Mastercam software and the project page. And I don't need this open at this time, and I don't need this open. So I'll just bounce back and forth between Mastercam and the project page. Right away, if you guys have Mastercam installed on your computer and you're looking at my screen and you're looking at your screen, and you'll notice that things don't look exactly the same. So let's talk about the basic configurations that I use, that I recommend that you use, so that we're all on the same page when I'm demonstrating something. So this is what I'll do. I'm going to start a new Mastercam file, file new. So I start a new Mastercam file. I'll go to file, and then I'll go to new. You can use these icons up here to do the same things from this file menu, but out of habit, this is what I use, a file new. I don't want to save any changes to the existing file, so I'll select don't save. That brings me up to a brand new session of Mastercam. I've got my level manager visible, but let's talk about the appearance of your screen. Right now, your background color is probably like a 2-tone gray. So I'm not going to tell you which background color that you should use. This is a personal preference. I like my background color completely black. It's easy for me to see, easier on my eyes. But if you wanted to change that, what you would do, you would go to File, go down to Configuration. Yours is going to look a little different than mine. So I got the System Configuration dialog box opened up on my screen. About 3 or 4 items down, you'll find colors. Left click on colors. And you can now see a color palette. And then you've got different items in this menu. And in my case, probably your case too, you got the 3rd and 4th items, background. You got gradient start, then you got gradient end. Now I changed both of mine to color 0 or black. Now, when you change the background color to black, there's a few other things that you're going to want to change the color of. If I scroll all the way down, the very last item, you'll see wireframe geometry. Now, yours is probably set to, I think, dark blue. And if it's set to dark blue and you have a black background, it's very difficult to see the wireframe geometry. So I'm going to change this over to green, color 10. And this will make it a little bit easier for me to see with my current background color. Jump up one to WCS origin. I've got mine changed over to white. Once again, if it's changed to a dark color and you've got a dark background, it's very difficult to see. So I'm going to change this to white. So that's the third item that we changed. And then I'm going to scroll up and I'm looking for plain. And I'm going to change that to white also. Once you change those items or change the color of those items, select the blue apply button at the lower right corner of that dialog box. And it'll prompt you, making sure that you want to, do you really want to change the color of these items? Yes. It'll take a moment. It's updating the system file. So once I change the colors of those four or five items, I'm going to select chaining. And on this dialog box or on this page, at the upper right corner where it says general selection masking, I want to select plain mask in chaining. So I'll have a check next to plain mask in chaining. And that's pretty much it in this case. So check plain mask and chaining. And I would match your settings to what I have on my screen. If you see anything different, just change it over to what you see on my screen. I believe what you're seeing are the default settings with the exception of the plain mask and chaining. You have to change that one.
What about chaining dialogue?
Chaining dialogue. Is that, do you not see it on my screen?
No.
Yeah, so you have a new version of the software. Is it a checkbox?
Yeah, mine says default to last used.
I think you'll be okay with that.
Okay.
I'll see it here in a couple weeks. I actually installed 2022 on my laptop,
Okay.
but I'm using my desktop in this case. I'll look into that. I think you're fine the way you are, but I will research that for you.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, so from here, let's go back to CAD. And I'm just checking a few things. I think the default settings are fine. And once again, yours might look slightly different than mine because you have the latest version of Mastercam installed on your computers. So I think we're good. We might come back and visit this later on in the course, but for starters, this will be fine. So from here, select the green check, okay. You should see the background color update to the color that you assigned. But what I want you to do is I want you to go to File, New, just to verify that all of these settings have changed over. Now, there's a good chance you don't have this axis control triad. I've heard it called Gnomon. I've heard many people refer to it as many different things. And this is our coordinate system. And mine's visible in the middle of my screen. If I go to the view menu, and then you go to display, where it says show gnomons. If you turn it on, it's got this blue appearance to it. If you click on it again, it turns it off or makes it invisible. You can see how it's no longer selected. The blue frames around a icon indicate that they are visible or active. So what I'll do, I'll expand this. And I've got C-plane and T-plane checked. And then I've got use origin colors checked. And then I'll just select this icon. and it makes it visible on my screen. And that'll be our X0, Y0, Z0. And we're going to build around this coordinate system when we start modeling up our part.
Hold on, could you repeat that last part you did?
So if I expand the show nomens,
Okay, yeah, sure.
I've got C plane checked, I've got T plane checked, and I've got use origin colors checked. Yours might be a little bit different. Once again, you're using the latest version of the software. For starters tonight, it's important that we have the C plane visible because we're going to create some type of geometry. So our construction plane, I would like to have that visible. And yeah, so I like to use origin colors. Otherwise, it takes on the RGB, and it's a industry standard: red, green, blue, RGB. So RGB, XYZ. If I tumble it a little bit, the red represents the X axis, the Y represents the, I'm sorry, the green represents the Y axis, and the blue represents the Z axis. I'll go back to a top view, and that's what you're probably seeing on your screen right now. But I like to have it I don't need the RGB colors assigned to it. I just like to have it set to one color. And once again, that's a preference. If you like to have it set, or as you get comfortable with the software, you're going to set it up the way that it works for you. I'm not going to force you to do a certain, force you to use it a certain way, or force you to set your interface a certain way. But it is helpful if we use the same settings in certain cases. That way, your version of Mastercam responds the same way that mine does. Okay.
Thanks. I have another question too. Sorry. In between the X and Y axis, there's like a gray square on mine.
Oh, gotcha. Hold on a second. So plain Nomen setting. So what I want you to do, right click on your screen and then go to isometric view. So anytime you see this flyout menu right here, that's me right clicking on my screen, or right clicking in the graphics area. So I right click in the graphics area, this menu becomes available to me, and I'll select isometric. And you see that plane right there, right? And I'm going to make mine visible. It's taking a moment to update. So that's what you're seeing. It looks like a square, like a square sheet of paper.
Yeah.
So everyone's probably seeing this right now. This is new in the last 3 or 4 years, and I don't like it. So what I do is right away, I make it invisible. So I'm looking at it from an isometric view. You could probably do the same thing from a top view. Just position your cursor on that gray square, right click. From the flyout menu at the very bottom, you'll see plain Nomen settings. Left click. That brings up the controls for the plain Nomen. I'm going to uncheck show plane, and then I'll select OK. And then it says save all current settings to configuration file. I'll select yes. Takes a moment for mine to update. And it should disappear. Danny,
Yeah.
how's it looking? Good?
Yeah, looks good, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good, bro.
Manuel, I've got your message. You're good. I'll mark you present.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so now your screen should start to look a lot like mine. Something else. On the left side of your screen, you'll see these things that we refer to as managers. And you might have all of them open, or you might just have one open. When I'm creating geometry, I like to maximize my graphics area. So what I'll do is I can minimize any any manager that might be visible. It's not a big deal. When I need it, I can easily bring it back up. So in this case, these managers, I got a level manager visible, a toolpath manager, and a plane manager. And they're sitting on top of each other, and I can toggle back and forth between them with these tabs down here, the lower left corner of my screen. For the time being, I'm going to make them invisible. A couple different ways you can do that. If you go back to the view tab So top of your screen, click on the View tab, and then you'll see in the section called Managers, you've got these different managers visible, or I'm sorry, these different managers available to you. The ones that are highlighted blue are the ones that are currently visible. A couple different ways you can make them invisible. You can click on them from the Manager section, and it doesn't look like anything happened, but if you look down here, that Planes tab disappeared. You can also close them out by clicking on the X at the upper right corner. And when you close them all out, it's the graphics area. If you ever need them again, just come up to the come up to the Managers section and just click on them here. Let's make them all invisible for the time being. So that's how I will maximize my graphics area so I can see things a little bit easier when I'm creating geometry. How's everyone doing up to this point? So,
Good.
okay. All right. So, Corey, it's safe to say that there are no students at the school at this time.
Yeah, none.
Okay, cool. So you guys are comfortable working from home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You
Yeah, I
guys
just
are
need to buy like another monitor. And so
yeah. Yeah. So it makes a huge difference. Yeah, and if you were to go to the school, there's only one monitor available at the computer anyway. So I find it best if you can, set up multiple monitors at home and have a computer that's going to run the software well enough. I'd rather stay home. And yes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I actually don't have two monitors, but I'm doing Zoom on my laptop and then I have my program on my desktop. I don't know if like anyone else could do that, but it's working really well.
It's working well, but it's going to be one drawback from that. Does anyone else have? Let me show you show you why it's good to have Zoom and Mastercam running on the same computer. Does anyone else have Mastercam and Zoom running on the same computer?
yeah, I do.
So
Yeah.
let's do this. Danny, I want you to share your screen with me, but give me one moment. I got to set something up. Let's see. All right, so inside of Zoom, now the good thing and bad thing about Zoom is the Zoom controls, when you're participating in a Zoom meeting, your Zoom controls are kind of bouncing all over the screens, right? And they're not visible to anybody else. So right now, if I were to drag my Zoom controls in the middle of the screen where Mastercam is, you guys can't see it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, I've got my my share screen, or the green bar where it says you are sharing your screen, middle of my screen. You guys can't see it, and that's kind of how Zoom has been designed. But with that
Correct.
said, Dan, you have Mastercam and Zoom running on the same computer, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to share your screen with the rest of the class. Share it with me.
Okay. My entire screen or just the windows?
You could share the entire screen. Just maximize Mastercam on that. So that's the other thing. You can share a screen, you can share an application, you can share a window. I usually just share the screen right away, and then I'll toggle back and forth between the two, and that way everyone can see what I'm doing. So if you could share the screen that has Mastercam on it.
Yeah, I am. Can you guys
Okay.
see it or no?
Not yet. It'll pop up here in a moment. I might have to stop sharing my screen. So hold on one second. So I'll stop sharing my screen. So Dan, share your screen again. I think you're sharing your, there we go.
I see it.
All right, perfect. So now I'm going to request remote control of your screen. And I haven't done this in a moment, so give me one moment. Oh, 1 second.
Oh, I see an option here on my side for.
Oh, I see it too. Hold on. So I'm going to say request remote control. It was at the very top. And it should be,
Okay.
then you'll give me control of your screen. Then click, then on mine, it says click to start the mouse keyboard control on the screen. So I click in his screen
Oh, wow, nice.
and I'm now controlling his screen. And this is a
That's
very
cool.
powerful tool. So when you guys get hung up with something, it's like, I'm trying to do this, but it's just not responding the way that yours is. And I can come into your screen and I can start working. And I'm just going to do a little quick demo. And then I'm also testing to see what type of connection we have. This can be a problem when we don't have a good connection. There seems to be a little bit of a lag, but.
Oh, no, I can't figure out how to rotate the screen like you could. Like, yeah.
So I have a 3-button mouse and it's really a 2-button mouse with a scroll wheel in the middle of it. And if you press the scroll wheel down and move your mouse, it allows you to tumble your view. So right now I'm just holding the scroll wheel down and I'm moving the mouse. And let's see, I'm going to put this another one right here. There we go. Make that 3 by 2. And we got a pretty good connection.
Yeah, it's moving as fast as like I would move my mouse.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a delay. Like right now, I hit the delete key. I highlighted this rectangular shape and I hit the delete key, and it's just taking a moment. So maybe my delete key is not working properly. So I'll go to the home tab, delete entities. That seems to be working. If I right click and go to isometric view, right click, look at it from a top view. So these are things that I can do. This is a benefit of us all having Zoom and the software on the same computer. Now, Lydia, it's not going to end. It's not the end of the world if you choose not to run like that. Just be aware that I cannot help you in the way that I'm helping. I can't control your screen the way I'm controlling Dan's right now. It's not that big of a deal. It's just, it's a tool that can be helpful at times. So what I'll do now, I'll go to view options. I'll give up remote control. And Dan has control of his screen again. Then I go back to share and I share my screen. And you guys should be able to see my screen now. And if I look at it from an isometric view, I don't have anything on my screen. I just have my triad or my working coordinate system. I'll look at it from an isometric view and I'll look at it from a top view. So that's one of the benefits of working with Zoom. There's actually a lot of cool features inside of Zoom, and I'm just kind of tapping the surface of what it's capable of doing. So are there any questions up to this point? How's everyone doing? Is the Zoom meeting and my presentation smooth? Sometimes I've noticed in the videos it can get choppy. And I think it's because for whatever reason, the network connection was having issues. But
the audio is a little choppy.
Oh, the audio is a little choppy. Okay,
It's good for me.
it's good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it could be a couple different things.
Maybe it's my connection.
Yeah, so that's what I'll do. Like if someone says you're breaking up, I'll just ask the rest of the class, how is anyone else experiencing this? And if everyone's experiencing, which has happened in the past, I know it's on my end. But if it's not, if it's clear for everyone else, it might be on your end. So just be aware of that. And I don't have a bunch of people accessing my network at this time, so I think we're okay. All right, so from here, if I go back to the project page, and let me back up a little bit. So there's a lot of things going on inside of Mastercam, especially with the interface. I'm not going to go into explaining each item. I'm not going to make a class lecture based off of that. What I like to do is I like to introduce projects, and I want everyone working with the software as quickly as possible. As we use a tool, that's when I'm going to talk about what it does. I'm not going to go through a long presentation explaining what each of these tabs does and all the tools that lie underneath. There's a lot of tools inside of Mastercam that we don't use. I can accomplish what I need to do. And if I, like, for example, this model prep tab, I won't use any of this. And there's a few other things that I just don't use. A lot of tools, don't use them all. And as we use them, that's when I like to give a good explanation of what they're all about. All right, so from here, let's go back to the project page and let's look at the engineering drawing. We're going to generate a 3D representation of this part, and we're going to do it in multiple steps. But before we generate the 3D representation of the part, we're going to generate a 2D representation of the part, and we're going to verify that it's correct before we move forward and create the 3D representation of the part. So I'm looking at this particular engineering drawing, and the information that I need to manufacture this part, the information that I need to model up this part, is all available to me on this blueprint. I've got some notes, I've got dimensions, and I've got multiple views. And from this information, I need to determine how I'm going to create this part. Usually when I get a drawing, I like to look at the title block and look for any information that will help me out, manufacturing the part. So looking at the title block, what is this part made from? So title block would be this square at the bottom right corner.
6061 T6.
Correct. So the material that this part is to be made from is aluminum 6061-T6. So there are different series of aluminum, and it's specifying that we make it out of 6061-T6. So that'll come into play when we purchase the material to buy it. Also come into play when we determine what speeds and feeds we're going to use to machine this part. I'm looking at these dimensions. What unit of measure are these dimensions in?
Rectangular. Wait, no. Inches.
Yes. So
Standard.
once again, I'm looking at the title block because are these dimensions in millimeters or are they in inches? So if I come down here and it says, look at the title block, says unless otherwise specified, dimensions are in inches. And then there'll be some type of tolerances available to us. There are no tolerances on this drawing. This is a demonstration part, but if this was at work, if I was at work, it would specify to what accuracy I need to machine this part or manufacture this part based off of the number of decimal places applied to these dimensions. Okay, what other information do we need? All right, so length, width, and height, or length, width, and thickness. Left to right, what is the length of the part?
3 inches.
3 inches. Up and down, what is the height of the part?
2 inches.
2 inches. And then that's coming from this top view or this plan view. To determine what the thickness is, I need to go over to this side view. What is the thickness of this part?
1.188.
0.188. So that's what we're doing right now is we're interpreting what information is given to us on this blueprint. All right, so the part's going to measure 3 inches by 2 inches by 0.188 thick. What is the diameter of the holes that are going through the part?
0.201.
0.201. And it just happens to be the same diameter as a number 7 drill, so that's why it's in parentheses. How many of these holes are drilled into this part? Or how many holes exist in this part?
16.
Correct, and that's given to us by this 16x. What is the depth of the holes in the part? That's kind of a trick question. They go all the way through. So if you would have said 0.188, I'd say yes and no, but what I was looking for is through. And this is an acceptable abbreviation to spell through on an engineering drawing. So you can see how I'm working my way through or evaluating what I see in the drawing to determine what I need to do or to determine the size of the part or the size of the features that are on the part. So the next thing we're going to do, we need to position this part. We're going to model this part inside of Mastercam, but we need to position it relative to our coordinate system so that the machine knows where to create these holes. So what I'd like to talk about is what would you like to assign as the origin on this part? So I'm looking at this part and we need to assign an X0, a Y0, and a Z0. So going back to dimensions, coordinates, it's based off of the Cartesian coordinate system. And we need to tell the machine what the XY coordinate or what the location of these holes is relative to a known zero or a known origin. I'm looking at the dimensions that are on the blueprint, and I'm noticing that they have certain edges in common. So this 0.6, this 1.2, this 1.8, and this 2.4, and even this 3-inch up here, they all have this edge in common. You guys see that? They're all being pulled from this edge.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify this edge as my X0 or my X origin. And what the machine needs to know, and what Mastercam will tell the machine, is how far away from this edge or X0 are these holes right here? What's the distance? Now I'm talking left to right. What's the distance from this edge to the center of this hole right here?
0.6.
0.6. That is correct. What is the distance from this edge to the center of this hole? Left to right. 1.2. Distance from this edge to the center of this hole?
1.8.
Correct. And just keep, same methodology. Distance from this edge to the center of this hole?
2.4.
2.4. So you see how that works? We have to tell the machine where to go to drill or to create this hole. And it needs, what we'll do is we'll set up the origin on the part, and then we'll provide it with the XY coordinates telling it where to create these holes. So another piece of information. It's not, well, it is clear, but you need to understand that this hole, this hole, this hole, and this hole are all the same distance from this edge. So this 0.6 dimension here is identifying the X coordinate for these 4 holes. We'll call it this column. So you see these center lines, how they're in line. So that's telling me that they are all sharing the same X coordinate. And the same thing is true for this column of holes, this column of holes, and this column of holes. So I've got the X coordinates to create these holes. Let's talk about the Y coordinates. Now I'm seeing this 0.4 dimension, this 0.8, this 1.2, this 1.6, and this 2. They all have this edge in common. So I would like to establish this edge as my Y0 or my Y origin. So with that said, what is the distance from this edge to the center of this hole?
0.4.
0.4. And where this is along the y-axis. What is the distance from this edge to this hole, or the center of this hole?
0.8.
I think your audio cut out, man. I can't hear you.
Okay,
Yeah, I hear you.
my bad. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Hopefully it wasn't too long. Was it 15 seconds or is it 5 minutes?
Just a couple
15.
seconds.
Okay,
5 seconds.
perfect. Yeah, I hit the mute on my mic. My bad. So what we're going to do is when we build a part inside of Mastercam, we're going to generate toolpaths, and then those toolpaths are going to be sent out to the machine. At the machine needs to know where the origin is on the part, and we'll determine that with tools that we use, be it an edge finder or a probe. But what we do inside of Mastercam is we provide XYZ coordinates, and then the machine is going to go there and perform certain types of machining operations. And in this particular case, we're just identifying the X and the Y coordinates relative to the lower left corner of the part. And with that said, that's how we're going to go about building this part. So when you're looking at the part, what would be a basic shape that would represent the outside profile of this part?
A rectangle?
A rectangle. So what we'll do, we'll go into Mastercam. We're going to start by creating what's referred to as wireframe geometry, 2D representation of the part. At the top of your screen, you'll see these different tabs. Select a wireframe. And now you have all these tools available to you. The one that we're going to use, about the middle of your screen, you'll see a rectangle, but I don't want you to use rectangle. There's another type of rectangular tool that we can use. It gives us more control. There's a small arrow underneath the rectangle tool. Select it. It expands. And the tool that I want you to use is rectangular shapes. It is extremely rare that I use the rectangle tool inside of Mastercam. The majority of the time I'm using rectangular shapes. So select rectangular shapes. It takes a moment. And you'll see the parameters for the rectangular shape tool appear on the left side of your screen. And you'll also see Mastercam is prompting us to provide it with some type of information. Now on my screen, it says select the base point. You have the same thing, but it doesn't look like this. Let me change it so it looks like yours. So for starters, it's probably set to small font. And the background color is probably like this gray. Is that close to what you guys are seeing on your screen?
I actually don't have that text on my screen.
And this is why I'm having you change it, because it can turn up anywhere. See how I can reposition it, and it will be placed in somewhere that you can't see it. So do you see the rectangular shapes dialog box on the left side of your screen?
Yes.
So somewhere on your screen, this prompt is there. We just can't see it because the default colors like to blend in with the background that it might be sitting on top of. Do you see it anywhere? Yeah, so watch what happens if I place it here and I close out, and then I go back into the tool. It's right there. If I place it up here and I close out, then I go back into the tool, it stays there. And this is a big problem for students because it'll be hidden and it's difficult to find. So what I like to do, and this is for my own benefit and for yours, I change this to a color that's easily seen with the current background color. So if I right click on it, background color, I set it to red. And then if I right click on it again, and then I change it to a large font, a little bit easier to see when I open up the tool. So Lydia, did you find it?
Yeah, I had to close it and then reopen it and it was there.
Got it. So you see how it can be a little bit difficult to find sometimes?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the logic behind me changing the color of it.
I still can't find it.
Close out of it, and then, oh, and it's better yet, if you're running dual monitors, you can move that little dialog box to a different screen altogether. And I've had students, they can't find it because it's on a different screen. Or it'll be another thing that it likes to hide behind. Check your zoom controls. If you got a zoom control sitting like overlaying Mastercam, you'll lose things behind the zoom controls also.
Oh yeah, I was behind my Zoom. What the heck?
Yes, we've had multiple opportunities over the last year and a half to troubleshoot the problems that come up. Okay, so once you change the color, it'll make things a little bit easier down the road. let's talk about what we can control with this dialog box. And most of the time, the default settings work, and we'll just have to change a few things. So for the entity, upper left corner of the rectangular shapes dialog box, I've got it set to rectangular. The method, I have it set to base point. And points, it's just one. Now the origin, we're going to change this, but for the default, it's set at the lower left corner. And this is of the actual rectangular shape that we're going to create. For the width.
What does point mean? What is that?
Point. So if you got 2 points or base point, it's not let me change. It's not actually let me use it. I'll be honest with you, I don't use it. So what point is, it's the anchor point. And when I create, I'll show you real quick, 3 by 2. That's the lower left corner that that the rectangle is attached to my cursor at. And it's not let me do anything else. So really can't give you a better answer than that. I accept the default and I've never changed that, to be honest with you. So what I do,
After you typed in those like numbers,
yes,
the numbers for the width and the height, you just hit enter, right? And then it generates the.
yeah, I'm going to back up and do that again. I was just trying to demonstrate what the points thing did, and I didn't do very well on that. But so as we work our way down, it's very rare that I'll make a change to the I'm using a rectangular tool. It's rare that I change any of these settings. For the method, I use base point. For the points, it's set to 1. I just leave it at that. The origin. This is where your cursor will appear on the rectangular shape when we create it. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a moment. For the width, if you look at the drawing, the width is referring to the length. So the 3-inch feature of this part. So what I'll do in the width field, click on it, type in 3, hit enter. And then in the height field, that represents the 2-inch feature, the distance from this edge to this edge. So for the height, type in 2 and then hit enter again. And when you hit enter that second time, move your cursor into the graphics area. I'm not clicking anything. I'm just moving my cursor into the graphics area. You should see a preview of that rectangular shape attached to your cursor at the lower left corner. Now, I don't want you to do this. I just want to show you how you can control the origin on the rectangular shape. So right now it's at the lower left. If I click at the upper right, you see how my cursor is now attached to the upper right corner of that rectangular shape. Come back over here. Now it's the lower right. I could center it. So we have control on how we place this rectangular shape. And as we work through the projects, we'll place the origin pretty much. We'll use probably 6 of the 9 options that are available from this control right here. So, but for this project, because the origin on our part is at the lower left corner, that's where I'm going to place the origin of this rectangular shape. So now I've got this rectangular shape attached to my cursor.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So did we at any point specify that those measurements were in inches in software? Or
Yes, we did. No, I'm sorry. In the software, we did not. So when you installed, and that's a good, very good question. So when you installed Mastercam, it might have asked you what your default unit of measure is going to be. Now I selected inches. You might have selected millimeters. To verify what your unit of measure is for a particular section of Mastercam, look at the bottom right corner of your screen and what do you see? See how mine says inches? I got my cursor next to it.
Yep.
So that's a very good question. The majority of the time when I'm at work, I will have everything set in inches, but there are projects that I work on where everything is converted to millimeters. And to do that, let me place this rectangular shape and then I'll address that question. So Back up a little bit. I've got the preview of the rectangular shape on my cursor. I'm going to position my cursor close to the origin. And when I do that, you'll see this icon pop up next to your cursor. And it looks like an asterisk. That's letting me know that I'm locking on to the origin of Mastercam at this time. So once I see it once I see it appear, once I see that icon appear, I left click. I've got this ring. Don't select the ring. That'll allow you to rotate if you needed to. In this case, we don't. We want this bottom line to be horizontal. You'll also notice that the geometry is this light blue color, and that's an indicator that the geometry or the object is still alive. What I mean by live is I can come down here and I can make changes to these values. So let's say I suddenly wanted to make this a 4-inch rectangular shape or a 4-inch long rectangular shape. I could click on this and change it. And see how it changes to a longer rectangular shape. I can also click on these arrows. So the light blue means that it's a live entity. We can still make changes to it. To finalize the creation of this rectangular shape, I've got to set the 3 inches by 2 inches. I'll select the green check, okay. But what I like to do before I hit the green check, quick visual check. Make sure the width is set to 3, the height is set to 2, and then select okay. And then it finalizes the creation of that rectangular shape. The rectangular shape is now the assigned wireframe color. If I go back to the Home tab, so under the Home tab, here are the default colors for a brand new session of Mastercam. So my wireframe color is taking on this green color. And that was set when I opened up or when I went into the configuration file and I set the wireframe color. I changed mine from red to this green color. I think the default was a dark blue, and that makes it difficult to see with my current background color. So Manuel, you were inquiring about the unit of measure. So originally we got the drawing told us the unit of measure from the title block. We're all good with that. But when you open up a session of Mastercam, that's determined by the initial installation. The default unit of measure on mine is set to inches, but the time will come when you have a job that needs to be run in millimeters. What you'll need to do is you'll go up to File, Configuration, and at the very bottom, see how it says current inch, and then mine is set to startup. So whenever every time I start up Mastercam, it's going to be in inches. What you can do, expand this, and then select metric. So that's what you would do. If your default, if your Mastercam is set up to start up at inches, you'd have to change over to metric. If it's set to start up as metric, you need to flip over to metric. You just do the opposite. Expand this and then change it over to inches. So that's how you would go about doing that.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So once again, File, Configuration, and you can change the units that Mastercam is interpreting numbers right here. So I'm set to inches. I'm good. Select OK. So we've created the base feature of our part. How's everyone doing up to this point?
Good.
Pretty good. Can I just verify something real quick?
Yes, definitely.
So when we were making the wireframe, width
Yes.
is the x-axis,
Yeah. So
right?
and you have to get comfortable with the terminology that Mastercam uses. So the 3-inch feature, the width, then the height is the 2-inch feature, and then the thickness. When we give this part some thickness in the Z, we're going to use this value. Then let me go back to the rectangular shape tool. So if I go to wireframe, rectangular shapes, yeah, so left to right is the width, and then the height is the 2 inches. They good?
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So now we need to create a point, and it's not necessary, absolutely necessary that we do it this way. This is just a method that's been used in our department, and I'm just going to continue following that method. But there are other ways you can go about creating the points and the circles that represent the XY locations of these holes. So let's do this. Let's start by placing a point. And you can create a point under the front, or a point is considered wireframe geometry, and you'll find it underneath the wireframe tab. And we're going to place it at the center of the hole that's closest to the origin. And if you look at the blueprint, the hole at the bottom left, or the most bottom left hole, the hole that's closest to the origin, this is the hole that I'm going to place first. The X coordinate relative to this edge is 0.6. Then the Y coordinate relative to this edge is 0.4. So watch how I place this. I'll go back to the wireframe tab. Far left side, you'll see point position. So I'll left click on point position. It brings up the parameters for the point tool. Mastercam is communicating with us. It says create point position. I need to place this point very accurately. And to do that, the best way in this case is to use my keyboard. If you hit your space bar, so on the keyboard, hit the space bar and watch what happens right here at the upper left corner of my graphics area. So I hit the space bar and then this field pops up. In this field, we can type in XYZ coordinates. And in this case, I'm going to type in 0.6, comma, 0.4. So I typed in 0.6, comma, 0.4. And when I hit enter, you'll see a point appear at that location. It's still blue, which means I can change some of the parameters associated with it. Once you see the preview, if it looks to be correct, select OK. That's one of several ways that you can place a point in the graphics area. Let me demonstrate another one. If I select the point, here's another opportunity for me to demonstrate something. I would like to delete this point. You could Control Z and undo it, but to delete it, if I hover my cursor over it, you see how it kind of highlights? When you see it highlight, left click. Now it's taking on this glowing yellow appearance. That's an indicator that it is selected. Go up to Home, Delete. So that's how you can delete things. There's multiple ways to delete things. You can actually select something, then hit the delete key. And we'll demonstrate that throughout the semester. I'm going to recreate that point using a slightly different method. I'll go to wireframe, point position. Once again, I'll hit the space bar. It makes this field pop up. If I type in X 0.6, Y 0.4, hit enter, you'll see the point appear, and then I'll select the green check to finalize the creation of that point.
When I press spacebar, Mastercam won't even pick up my keyboard. Remember when you were trying to hit delete and it wouldn't work?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not picking up my keyboard. I can't really type.
It's not picking up your keyboard.
You have to click the point on the graph and then hit spacebar.
Click the point on. Does that work?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, may I see your screen? So I'll
Yeah.
stop sharing my screen.
Oh, there you go.
All right. All right, cool. So everyone should be able to see Dan's screen, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, and I will request control. So request remote control. I click on your screen and now I can zoom in and out. All right, so I'm doing a marquee selector on this point. And my escape key is not working either. So there's something going on with the keyboard.
Yeah, but it works on your computer, right? When you just
Okay, it did work that time. If I hit the delete key, it's not working. But if I go to home, delete, Now, let me try to create that point using my method. So I go wireframe, point position. So I move the dialog box out of the way. Now I see how it's floating around. If you want to dock it, you're getting a little bit, double click on that.
You gotta drag it to like the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I do is if you get close and you double click at the top of the pane, it'll dock itself. But now I got this point over here, but let's do this. Apply. Now if I hit the space bar. Yeah, interesting. So we're not getting, I don't think your keyboard is Mastercam is recognizing your keyboard
Okay.
or recognizing any keyboard for that matter.
Yeah. Sorry. If nobody else has this problem, I'll try and figure it out.
Okay.
On that real quick.
But another way, hold on 1 second. If you go to, should be the quick points. Yeah, so there's a minor issue. It's not recognizing. I can get by using the mouse, but anything I do with the keyboard, it does not like it. And you're having the same problem. Dan, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so check your keyboard. Or you might have to go into your keyboard settings and I could do a little research on that too. So just follow along for the time being the best you can, and then we'll address this when, after the lecture. Is that cool?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. All right, so I'm going to go back to, I'll give up remote control. I'll share my screen. And you should be able to see my screen now. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
So, right-
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so if I look at the blueprint, we're going to, instead of drawing in 19 more points using the same method, we're going to copy and make additional copies of the points and the circles. That way it'll expedite or it's a more efficient way of going about creating this geometry. But before I create these additional copies based off of the first one, it's a good idea to check the position of the first one to make sure that it's correct. Because I've had students in the past where they get it close, it looks good, but it's slightly off. So I want to show you guys how to check the actual position of that point relative to the coordinate system. If you go to the Home tab and you go to Dynamic, there's a small arrow to the right of Dynamic. If you click on it, it expands the menu, select Position. So Home tab in the Analyze section, expand Dynamic, and under Dynamic, you'll find Position. Mastercam is prompting us to select a position. Let your cursor lock onto the point. You'll position your cursor close to the point. You'll see the point become highlighted. You'll also see a point icon pop up next to your cursor. Left click. And then you'll see a small dialog box appear. And it has X, Y, and Z values. And the X is 0.6, the Y is 0.6, and I've got a Z value, which is got me wondering. Yeah, that's not good. So if I look at it from a top view, I'll delete that again. If I go to wireframe, point position, spacebar, 0.6, comma 0.4, hit enter. Hit OK. Go back to the Home tab. Dynamic position. That's better. Somehow I had a Z value in there. Don't know how that happened, but I've got X at 0.6, Y at 0.4. I'll select OK. I'm now confident that that point is in the right location and I can move forward with creating additional pieces of geometry. How are we doing up to this point?
Good.
Good.
Nice. Okay.
Point question. So points are just really a reference, right? So they're not like uh, part of the part.
The points?
Yeah.
No, we're gonna use those as, yeah, like you said, a reference. We're just gonna use those, use those to locate the circles. Okay. But they can be used to drive toolpaths too. And you'll see that as we get into the toolpath creation of this project. Okay, so now that I know that this point is at the correct location, let's place a circle centered on that point. And the diameter of that circle is given to us by this information on the blueprint, this call out. So back inside of Mastercam, I'll go to Wireframe. This time we're going to use a circle center point tool. Click on the circle center point icon. On the blueprint, did they define the diameter? I'm sorry, did they define the size of this circle with a radius value or a diameter value? Diameter. So the symbol that you see right here, the circle with the diagonal line going through it, this represents diameter. So these holes are defined with a diameter value for the size. So it's a 0.201 diameter. Radius would be half of the diameter value. So it'd be a 0.1005 radius. The reason I'm asking that, inside of Mastercam, when you're defining a circle, you can define it with a radius value or a diameter value. On the blueprint, they gave us a diameter value, 0.201. I hit enter. I position my cursor into the graphics area, and you'll see a preview of that 0.201 diameter circle attached to your cursor. Position your cursor close to the point that we placed. When you see it lock onto that point, left click. You'll also notice that the circle is now at that light blue, indicating that it's still a live entity. You could change the diameter at this point. So if I click on these up and down arrows, you can see how the diameter value changes. I don't want to change it. I typed in the accurate value, so I'll leave it at 0.201. If everything looks good, verify that the numbers are correct. Select the green check to finalize the creation of that circle. How's everyone doing up to this point?
Good.
Good.
Nice. All right. I'll go back to the drawing. Now we could place points at the other 19 locations using the same method. Go create the point, identify the XY coordinate, and work our way around and place these additional 19 points. That would be good practice, but it would also be terribly inefficient. I'm going to use a tool called Transform Copy to create three additional instances of the point and the circle along the x-axis. Before I do that, though, I need to verify that these columns, or the spacing from center to center, is the same between these four columns. So the distance from the center of this hole to the center of this hole would be the difference between this dimension and this dimension, 0.6. You guys see that?
Yes.
The distance from the center of this circle to the center of this circle would be the difference between this dimension and this dimension. Once again, it's 0.6. You guys see that?
Yes.
Perfect. And then right now we're just verifying that they're all equally spaced. The distance from the center of this circle to the center of this circle is the difference between 2.4 and 1.8. Once again, it's 0.6. So these four rows, or these four columns, all have the same X spacing, 0.6. So let's move forward. We're going to make 3 additional copies, 0.6 apart from each other. Go to the Transform tab. In the Position section, select Translate. That'll bring up the Translate dialog box. Now, right away, Mastercam is asking, says select entities to translate. You could select these points and these circles several different ways. You could pick select the point and the circle. You can also deselect the point and the circle with the same method, just left click on it. The time will come when you want to take advantage of these selection masks on the right side of your screen. And let's say there's 1,000 points on your screen. You want to select them very quickly without selecting other items. You can use a selection mask on the right side of your screen at the very upper right. Now these icons are cut in half. There's two parts to them. The upper left, select all point entities. If I left click on it, see how it changes to that glowing yellow appearance? That's an indicator that it's selected. So left click on the upper left half of the select all points entity, or sorry, select all points icon. The point becomes selected. You can do the same thing for the circle. Third icon down, select all arc entities. And the circle becomes selected. Now, in this particular case, it would have been just as easy to pick select the circle and the point. I just want to introduce the selection filters on the right side of the screen. I'll use these more and more as we work our way through the semester. So from here, select the point, select the circle. Once you have everything selected, you need to select end selection or hit your enter key or enter key. So end selection is no longer prompting us to select the entities. In the delta X field, type in 0.6 and hit enter. You'll see an additional instance of that circle and that point being created. At the far right side of the field where you entered that 0.6, you've got these two arrows. You get the up arrow, down arrow, that allows us to control the spacing. Above, in the field above, where it says number of instances, you can type in 3, hit enter, or you can increase the number of instances or decrease the number of instances with the up and down arrows. So what I have selected, I have the method set to copy. The number of instances I have it set to 3. And then the delta in the X field is 0.6. So that's how we're going to go about creating the 3 additional copies of the holes or of the circles along the X-axis. Now, with this particular tool, you can't translate in both the X and the Y. You can, but it's not going to give us the results that we're looking for in this particular case. If I type in 0.4 on the Y, look what happens. That's not what we want. So we have to copy along the X and Y axis separate from each other. So let's start with the X, zero out that value. I'm done creating the additional copies along the X axis, but I would like to stay within this tool. If you wanted to stay within this tool and finalize the creation of these additional copies, you would select the blue icon. If you were done with the tool altogether, you would hit the green icon. And I'll demonstrate how this works. If I hit the green icon, it exits the tool and these additional circles and points become finalized. You'll also notice that the colors have been changed from the original items and the copied items. The original items have taken on this red color. They're referred to as the result inside of Mastercam. We'll talk about that more at a later date. And then these purple color, or the copied items, have taken on this purple color. They're referred to as the result. So we've got the group and we've got the result. These are temporarily assigned colors. To clear the temporarily assigned colors, you right click on your screen and select this icon right here, clear colors. And then it takes on the assigned colors. But I want to demonstrate the apply and then the exit function. So let me redo this real quick. Don't do this. I'm just deleting this. If I go to transform, translate, I'll select the point. So I'm selecting the quick mask on the right side of my screen. So I selected the point. I selected the circle and selection. The method is set to copy. For the number of instances, I'll set it to 3. And in the delta field, I'll set the X to 0.6. To stay within this tool, I'll select OK. I'm sorry, not OK. I'm selecting the blue button, apply. It finalizes the creation of those 3 extra copies, but now it's prompting me to select additional entities. This time I'm going to select all points, all circles, select end selection. It's holding on to that X value. So what I'll do is I'll zero out the value in the X field. And now in the Y field, I'll type in 0.4. I'll hit enter. And you can see I've got the 3 additional rows. Now, something that I didn't check that I should check. I'm going to hit OK to exit the tool. I need to verify that the spacing between rows is the same. I kind of jumped ahead and I didn't do the math. So let's check that real quick. So, and this one's, the numbers are a little bit easier to work with for me. The spacing from center to center is the difference between 0.8 and 0.4, which is 0.4. Let's check the spacing from here to here. I've got 1.2 minus 0.8, once again, 0.4. The spacing from here to here, 1.6 minus 1.2, once again, it's 0.4. So the 0.4 between the rows is correct. Back inside of Mastercam. Mastercam is once again assigned temporary colors to the original items and to the copied items for the new items. To remove the temporarily assigned colors, right click on your screen and you can select this icon, clear colors. Another way to access that icon, go to the home tab and in the attributes section, you can select clear colors. From here, I'll look at, actually, there's a few other things that we need to do, but before we move forward, how is everyone doing?
Oh, good.
Doing good, nice. Now,
I don't have the cross thread on all my holes though, only the original one.
okay, so you might not have selected the point. And then so did you select just a circle when you did the translate?
Yeah, I guess so.
So what you could do, easy fix, just select the point and repeat what we did. So let me show you this real quick. I select all points. I'll deselect this one, delete. So this is what you're looking at on your screen, correct?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so you can follow along on how I do this. We're going to go back to transform, translate. It's asking me to select entities to translate. Select just the point, and then select end selection. We're going to copy the point, and we're going to copy it 3 times. So I need 3 instances, and then set the value in the X field to 0.6. How's it looking on your end, Brian?
Yeah, good.
Okay, so now hit the blue check. This time we're going to select all points on the screen. So I'll select all points. All the points become selected. I'll select end selection. And this time in the delta field X, I'll set that to 0. And then in the Y field, I'll type in 0.4. And you should have all the points that you need now. How we
Yeah, I
doing?
did it on one column, but I got to do it again on, let's see here. Selection. Yeah, I didn't think.
It could be because the quick selection for the entities is actually 2 buttons in one, right? It's like top
It's
and
two
bottom.
yeah, it's 2 buttons in one. So you want to select, I'm selecting the upper left half. If you select the bottom half, then you got to do like a window select. That's more of it's a 2-step process if you're
Oh.
selecting the bottom portion of the icon. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it again real quick. Hold on. Brian, you want me to take a look at your screen or are you good?
Oh, I'm good now.
Okay, cool. Actually, then if you're good,
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah,
redo it
it
then.
looks-
Oh, then let me do that. So once again, I just select the points. Now it's a 2-step process if you select the bottom part. So watch how this one works. So select only point entities. But now I got a window select. See how that works? Whereas if I select just point entities, if I go to transform, translate, all point entities and selection in the Y field 0.4. And on the 3 instances, in this case, I'll select the green check, OK. To clear the temporarily assigned colors, I'll right click on my screen and I'll select clear colors. How's everyone doing?
Yep.
Doing good.
Good.
Nice. All right. So let's do this. Let's go back to the blueprint. And the next step, well, from here, we could create the solid model from the part. But I need to be careful because if the solid model is correct, that's what's going to drive our toolpath. So we need to verify that the wireframe that the solid model will be built from is accurate. And a way for us to do that is to create these dimensions that we see on the blueprint. But before we create the dimensions, I would like to organize my work. And let's do this. I kind of skipped over this. I kind of just went from memory. But if we were to follow the instructions given to us on the project page, let's revisit this real quick. So modeling drill project 1. From the drawing above, generate a 3-dimensional model using the Mastercam software. Step 1, use the rectangular shapes tool to create the outside profile of the part. We did that. Step 2, use the point position tool to create one point at the center of the hole closest to the origin. We did that. Step 3, use the circle center point tool to create a circle centered at the point created by step 2. Did that. Step 4, use the translate tool to create the additional instances of the circle and point. We're good. Step 5, create the standard levels that we will be using in this class. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up the level manager and we're going to create 7 levels. And this is a standard for this class. You're going to want to use this or use these levels for every project that we do in this class. So what I'll do is I'll, toggle back and forth between this page and Mastercam, and we're going to open up the level manager and create these 7 levels. Don't have any managers visible at this time. I'll go to view. In the manager section, select levels. There's also a hotkey that'll get you there, Alt Z. But I'll just select levels from, or I'll select this levels icon here. And that opens up the level manager. How's everyone doing up to this point?
Good. I have 38 entities while you have 36, and I'm not sure why.
Okay, so that's not a problem. So what will happen sometimes when we're using the transform tool, we'll create extra geometry that we don't need. It's not a problem. And let me demonstrate the situation that could possibly arise. If I had this point selected, this point in the circle, and I go to transform, translate, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to use this tool. hit OK. Didn't create any extra, I
Oh,
didn't
I
create,
see.
I didn't create any extra geometry, right?
Right.
What if I select everything? Tools, I'm sorry. Transform. Translate, selected everything. You know what? I don't want to use this tool and select or OK. See what's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm copying geometry on top of itself. And if you tumble the view, you can't tell. And Mastercam is good at creating that type of problem. It also created a solution to the problem. Come up to the Home tab. And see where it says delete duplicates? Click on that. And you probably have 1 point and 1 arc. What do you see, Lydia? Lydia, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so under duplicates.
Yeah, so do this. Just go to the Home tab in the delete section, select duplicates. And I suspect you
Oh.
have 1 extra point and 1 extra arc.
It says 1 point and 0 arcs.
Okay, is there anything else that's considered a duplicate? You had 38 entities, correct?
Now it says 37.
Okay, just we'll just
Uh,
roll with it.
Yeah, it just says 1 point duplicate.
But your number of entities matches mine.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so that'll happen from time to time, and it doesn't hurt the Mastercam file. It's a good idea to delete duplicate entities. So go to the Home tab, delete duplicates, and it's going to delete what Mastercam identifies as a duplicate entity. 2 points sitting on top of each other. One of them is going to go.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's no harm in doing that. If Mastercam needs that geometry, it'll give you a warning. It'll say something like that particular piece of geometry is being used in a toolpath, a solid model, or a coordinate system. But in this case, there was no warning, so select OK.
So will it affect the toolpath if you have a duplicate point?
It can, yes, it can.
Okay.
It'll try and drill 2 holes there. So if they're both selected,
Oh, okay.
if you got both of those added to the geometry of that toolpath, it'll drill it once and it'll drill it twice. Not a problem, it just kind of wastes time.
Got it. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, cool. So from here, I've got my level manager open. I've got 36 entities on level 1. Level 1 currently does not have a name. Let's name level 1 solid support geometry. So back in Mastercam, it's a couple different ways you can name a level that already exists. You can double click in the name field, or you can click down here where it says name in this field. So I'm double clicking in the name field. I'll call this solid support geometry. And then I'll hit enter. So that's how we name an existing level. To create a new level, if I go back to the project page, this level 2 is called solid model. To create a new level, select the green plus sign at the upper left corner of the level manager. So I select the green plus sign. You'll see level 2 appear. Doesn't have a name. If I double click in the name field of level 2, we'll call this solid model and hit enter. And I'm going to repeat that process for as many number of levels as I need. So if I go back to the project page, level 3, we'll call this wireframe from solid. So I'll select the create new level or add a new level icon. You'll see level 3 appear. Double click in the name field. We'll call this solid. I'm sorry, wireframe from solid. And hit enter. Go back down to, or go back to the project page, level 4. We'll call that dimensions. Select the plus sign, add a new level. Double click in the name field. Call this dimensions. The fifth level, we'll call it points. So back inside of Mastercam, inside the level manager, select the green plus sign. You'll see level 5 appear. Double click in the name field. Call this points. Level 6, we'll call it material. So I'll select the green plus sign. It creates level 6. I'll double click in the name field. Call this material. And we'll create one more level, level 7. We'll call it name. I'll select add a new level. Double click in the name field. I'm sorry, double click in the name field and call it name. So that's how we're going to create levels. And these are the basic levels that we're going to use in this class. Every project page will have an example or have this image on the project page. So you're going to create your levels, follow these or use these names, follow this format. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good.
Do we want to
Nice.
end up saving this as we go, or
Yeah, and that's a that's probably the best question tonight. Because we're setting ourselves up for a headache. And I took note, I took a mental note of it about 15 minutes ago and thought to myself, we have not saved any of this work yet. And if your machine crashes, what happens? You lose all of this work. So was that, Brian, was that you?
yeah?
So very good question. And I'll say this over and over again. I just got ahead of myself in this with our first meeting. You want to save your work frequently. I usually don't go more than 10 minutes without saving my work. I'll save probably every 10-minute increment or more frequently than that even. So haven't saved our work yet. You're going to go to File. And from this menu, select Save. And what I recommend that you do, this will save you some grief down the road. Create a class folder for this particular class. So I'm going to go to my hard drive and I've got a folder for the year. And in this particular case, I've got Pat 2021. If I open it up, you see the classes that I have here. And this is MACT 160. I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to rename it MACT 160 Spring. Then I'm going to create a new folder. In a blank space on this dialog box, I'll right click. From the flyout menu, I'll select New Folder. And I'll call this MACT 160 Fall. Then inside of that folder, I will expand it. I'm going to call this one Drill Project 1. But before I do that, let's look at the. So step 10, this probably should have appeared sooner on. So save the Mastercam file as Drill Project 1 to the projects folder, also named Drill Project 1. So inside of the class folder, I'll create another folder, Drill Project 1. Then inside that folder, I'm going to save the Mastercam file. Now, this is a little bit different. Here is the file name. This will be for the actual Mastercam file. I'll call this Drill Project 1. Save as type. It should be a Mastercam. You might say HLE, but mine says EMCAM, so Educational Mastercam. Yours will be something close to this, if not the same. And then I'll select Save. And once you're done saving it, you can see the path to where this Mastercam file is located at the top of your screen. So in my case, mine's saved to my C drive. I've got a folder for the year. I've got a folder for this particular class. I've got a folder for the project. And then you see the Mastercam file saved in the project folder. You want to set up a folder for every project that we work on, because when you turn these into us, you're going to zip up the project folder that's going to have all supporting files in it, or all required files in it, and you're going to upload those to Canvas. So save your work frequently and make sure that you save them, or save your projects in an organized manner. So how's everyone doing?
Good.
All good.
Nice. So everyone's good. Okay. So let's do this. Let's go back to the project page. And we're going to dimension the part. Before I create a solid model, I want to dimension the part. I want to make sure that all the solid support geometry, the wireframe geometry, is correct. So create the standard levels that we will be using in this class. We've done that. Moving on to step 6. Use the Smart Dimension tool to dimension the two-dimensional representation of the part. All right. I go back to the engineering drawing. We're going to create drawings. I'm sorry, we're going to create dimensions that are similar to the ones that you're seeing on the engineering drawing. They don't need to be exact. We're using this dimension tool to verify that our geometry is correct. We're not actually creating an engineering drawing. The dimensions in Mastercam, I use them strictly for verification of geometry inside of Mastercam. So I'll go back to Mastercam. Before I create the dimensions, I want to set the wireframe color to something different than what's currently on my screen. I like to be able to see the difference between a dimension and a piece of wireframe geometry. And you can do that by changing up the colors. So from the Home tab, in the Attributes section, you'll see these 3 color icons. This icon controls a wireframe color. This icon controls the solid color. And then this icon controls the surface color. Expand the wireframe color. And from the color palette, select red. I'm going to use this red right here. And now anything that we create, any wireframe geometry that we create will take on this color. It'll take on the current color. It'll also get placed on the current level. So make the dimensions level the active level. And you can tell which level is active by the placement of this green check. So I'm going to select next to the 4 in the number column. You'll see the check appear next to level 4. That's the dimensions level. Anything that I create at this time is going to get placed on this dimensions level. And if it's if it's considered wireframe geometry, it's going to take on this red color right here. So wireframe color is set to red. The active level is dimensions. I'll go to the drafting tab. And I'm rolling my scroll wheel in and out because we're going to need to be able to pan, zoom, and reposition our view of the part to make this a little bit easier on ourselves. If you use your arrow keys up and down, left and right, it'll allow you to pan the view of your part. If you roll your scroll wheel, you can zoom out and you can zoom in. So I'm just rolling my scroll wheel at this time. If I right click on the screen, you can do a zoom window, you can unzoom, and then you can do a couple of other things. Dynamic rotate. We don't need that right now, but right now I'm concerned about panning and zooming. So what I would do is roll my scroll wheel, roll it back and forth, arrow left and right. And I'm going to position my part so I have room to create the dimensions. So drafting, I'm accessing the drafting tab. I'll go to Smart Dimension. Watch how I go about creating this dimension. I'm going to start by creating the X dimensions, the dimensions that define these features from left to right. I'll start by selecting this left vertical line and then the center of this circle. Then I'll go back and I'll select and I'll place the dimension. Then I'll select the vertical line again and then the center of this circle. Then I'll place the dimension. I'm going to keep doing that until I create all of the dimensions along the x-axis. So let's do this. Start by selecting the vertical line. Don't select the endpoint. You see how my cursor is locking onto the endpoint? I'm positioning my cursor close to the vertical line. When it highlights, I left click. It's trying to dimension the length of that line. I'll now position my cursor close to the center of the circle or the point. You'll see it lock on, left click. And I'm rolling my scroll wheel to zoom out a little bit. If I move my mouse, you can see the dimension is being created and I can control the placement of it by moving my mouse and getting it close to where it needs to be. Before I place it, before I left click and place it, I can come over to this dialog box. I can control the number of decimal places and I can control the size of the font. If I select height, I'm going to change the text height to 0.125. Select OK. And you can see, depending on how you drag or where you place your cursor, it's going to try and dimension it a few different ways. I'm going to drag it between this vertical line and the center of this point. Get it close where I need it to be. Left click to place it. To stay in this tool, I'll select OK, create new operation. I'll now select this vertical line, the center of this circle. I'll get the dimension close to where it needs to be, but you'll also notice before I click, you see how the arrows are on the outside of the extension lines? If I hit the A key, I can toggle the arrows to the inside or to the outside of the extension lines. In this particular case, I want them on the inside of the extension lines. Left click to place the dimension. I'll select the blue icon, OK, and create new operation. And I'll move on to the next dimension. I'll select the vertical line again. The center of this circle. And be careful, it's trying to lock on the quadrants. The icon that pops up next to your cursor is giving you an indication of where it wants to lock onto or what it's locking onto. Not what it wants to, but where it's locking onto. It's locking onto the point, left click. I'll place the dimension down here. I'll select OK, create new operation. I'll select the green vertical line. I'll lock on to the center of this hole. Left click. I'll place the dimension. I'm just approximating where it is relative to what I'm seeing on the blueprint. It doesn't need to be perfect. Once again, we are not creating an engineering drawing. We're just verifying that our geometry is correct. So I've got these 4 dimensions already created. I'm going to create this 3-inch dimension, the distance from this edge to this edge, or the length of this line. A couple different ways you can look at it. If I select this line, pull the dimension above the part, left click to place it. I'll select OK, create new operation. I can now move forward and place the vertical dimensions or the dimensions that run along the y-axis. To do that, I'll start by selecting this bottom edge, and then I'll select the center of the associated holes. I'll select the horizontal line. I'll select the center of the hole. I'll drag the dimension off to the left. OK, create new operation. And I'll repeat that process. I'll select the horizontal line, the center of the hole.
If you're not selecting create new operation in between, you're just clicking away, is that
That's fine.
okay, or okay.
If it works, it's good. Yeah, so
Okay.
there's some steps that you can skip. So, and what Brian is referring to is if you select, so I didn't click the OK create new operation icon. If I just select the horizontal line and just keep working my way through it, that works also. And if you watch my videos, I don't hit that between creating each dimension. So, and then to create the distance from the dimension that defines the distance from this edge to this edge, or the length of this edge, I can just select the line, drag the dimension off to the right, left click to place it. And everything's looking pretty good. If I go back to the blueprint, I don't have the thickness dimension on there. I can't do that because I don't have any depth for the part yet. I have all the linear dimensions, but I don't have this diameter dimension. To create this diameter dimension, I'll go back to Mastercam. I'll zoom in a little bit. I'm going to place my cursor at about the 4 o'clock position of this circle. I'm not letting it lock onto a quadrant. I'm just kind of slowly approaching the circle from the bottom right. And once I see it highlight, it changes over that dashed or that glowing white effect. Left click, and you'll see the dimension being created. So I left click on the circle, I pull the dimension away, and it's defining it with a 0.201 diameter dimension. The arrows are on the inside of the circle. I don't like how that looks. So if I hit the A key, it'll toggle the arrow from the inside to the outside. I'm just hitting the A key over and over, and you can see what's going on. So I want the arrow to the outside of the circle. Position the dimension off of the part, left click to place it. Now, it's not giving us all that additional information that the engineering drawing has on it. That's not necessary. We're just verifying that the diameter is correct. It is 0.201. So I'll let that alone. I'll leave it the way it is. I'll select OK to exit the dimension tool. I'll right click on my screen. I'll select fit. And then I'll save my work. This is a good saving point, or good time to save our work. How's everyone doing?
If you'd fat fingered in one of the diameter, is there a way to quickly change it and have it propagate through, or do you have to redo?
Let me see your screen. I think you might, I can show you a quick way, but it's it's not like SolidWorks or some of the other CAM package or CAD software. You got to handle each circle individually. So can I see your screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing right now.
All right, hold on. Try sharing again. And I think you're sharing your screen. Maybe share the application.
Yeah, you got to stop sharing and then yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, try that again.
Seeing it now?
Yeah, I can see it now. Okay, so yeah, you set it to 3/16, 0.188. Okay, so what you're gonna do?
That's the thickness.
Yeah. So, left click on the right, the bottom right circle with the dimension associated to it. So left click on the circle, hit F4, the F4 key, or go up to home. Yeah, select the circle, go up to home, and then in the analyze section, select analyze entity. So right there, yep. In the diameter field, type in 0.201. Yep, hit OK. Now, see how the rest of them didn't change?
Yeah.
So there's a couple different ways you can go about doing it. I would just select each one and change it to 0.201. and just hit the, it's from the, go to home tab. Yep.
Yeah.
And you could do it that way. It's a little painful. Hit the green check before you move on. Yeah. All
Okay.
right. So you're, yeah, you're in the process of fixing that. So, but other than that, everything looks good. But that's why we do this. So you found a problem when we were creating the dimensions. That's what the whole idea behind that was. So looks good.
So if you don't catch a problem like this and you move forward in making like the model and stuff, like you can't change the dimension once you're in the model.
Not as easily as you could in other softwares. And so the problem will compound itself. The further you get into the project, the more work it's going to take to fix the problem. Let's say you start creating toolpaths based off of that incorrect information. That could be a problem. So it's not as forgiving as some of the other softwares that are out there, whereas you change the one dimension and everything associated with it updates automatically. It's not that good. So I'm going to share my screen.
Learn from my mistakes, everyone.
Oh, there's, yeah. So some of the, that wasn't that painful. I've like I said, the further you go into the project, if you don't catch that, there's other things that could be dependent on it. They're going to create that will take a lot more time to fix. So how's everyone doing with the dimensioning side of things? And you'll notice that the dimensions can be a little finicky as how they react to your cursor movement. Does that make sense? They kind of bounce all over the place, and they'll, it takes a little bit to get used to. Okay, so you guys can see my screen, correct? This would be a good time for you to save your work.
Yes, we see.
All right, perfect.
How did you do the diameter one again?
Okay, let me show you real quick. So I'll delete this. So I did use the smart dimension for the diameter, but it's a little tricky on how you select the geometry. So if you go to drafting, and I use the smart dimension. And the way I did this, you don't want your cursor to lock on to the quadrants. The quadrants would be the 3 o'clock, the 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, the 6 o'clock. I'm going to position my cursor close to where I want that arrow attached to the circle. And as I get close to the circle, you see how it becomes highlighted? Once it becomes highlighted, left click, you'll see the dimension appear. And as you move it, that arrow maintains contact to the circle that we selected. You might have your arrows facing the inside of the circle or on the inside of the circle. I'm just hitting my A key to change that option. I want the arrow on the outside. I'll place the dimension off of the part, left click, then I'll select OK to exit the dimension tool. I'll right click on, looks good, perfect. I'll right click on my screen. From the flyout menu, I'll select fit. And I'll toggle back and forth between the drawing and my dimensions. Just double check everything. Looks good. So once I verify that the 2D geometry is in the correct location, I'm going to make the solid model level the active level, and I'll make the dimensions level invisible. They're still there. We just put them away so we can unclutter our screen. This is how we organize our work. We put things on different levels. We assign different colors to certain pieces of geometry. When it comes time to troubleshoot a part, the more organized that your setup is, the easier it's going to be. Okay. From here, I've made the solid model level the active level. We're going to start creating a 3-dimensional model from this 2D geometry. Anytime I give the part some thickness in the Z-axis, I like to look at it from an isometric view. Right click on your screen and look at it from an isometric view. So right click from the flyout menu, select isometric. We're now looking at it in 3-dimensional space. You'll see the X, Y, and Z axis now. I'll right click on my screen again. I'll select fit. And then I'll right click again and select unzoom 80%. That zooms out a little bit.
Wait,
I'll go back.
when you switch layers, we were on layer 4, right?
Yeah, so level 4 was my dimensions level. And when I made it invisible, all the
Oh.
red dimensions became invisible.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Something else I want to do. I want to move all of the points to level 5. Right now, the points reside on level 1. To move something from one level to another, it could be a little tricky, but I'll walk through this process slowly a few times. I want to move all the points to level 5. They currently reside on level 1. You can see that there are 0 entities on level 5. Go to your home tab. So click on the home tab. And then I want you to select this icon right here. So in the organize section, this icon is difficult to see. Home tab, in the organize section, select change level. It says select entities that change the level of. We want to select all of the points. Let's use the selection filter. So the upper right corner of your screen, upper left half of this icon. You see how it's in 2 halves? I'm selecting the upper left half. All the points become selected. So all the points on your screen should have taken on this glowing yellow appearance. Once you have them all selected, select End Selection. It brings up the Change Levels dialog box. We're going to move the selected items to level 5. So in the Change Levels icon, I'm sorry, in the Change Levels dialog box, make sure you have Move Selected. Deselect Use Active Level. And then in the number field, type in the number of the points level, 5. Then hit enter. And then what happened? The number of entities for a level 1 should have changed from 36 to 20. And you should see 16 entities now residing on level 5. How's everyone doing?
How did you get to that dialog box to change the levels?
This one right here. So the home tab in the organize section, this icon right here, change level. And it's asking me to select the entities to change the level of, select all the points, select end selection. And this is the dialog box you're referring to, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So it's asking you what do you want to do with these. So you want to move the selected items to the level number of your points level. So I had to uncheck use active level. And then in the number field, I just typed in 5 and hit enter. Did that work for you?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of steps in that process. It'll take a few times. You'll need to do it several times before it starts to become muscle memory. All right. For the time being, what we could do is we could make the points level invisible. If we need to call the points back up, just make that level visible. For the time being, I've got it set to invisible. And I've made the solid model level the active level. Anything we create will go on the active level. And we're going to create a solid model based off of the 2D geometry that's currently visible on my screen. If I go back to the project page, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I want to see if we have the standard colors page available to us in this canvas shell. I might not have it in this canvas shell, so give me 1 second. We go to the dashboard, not dashboard, We go to yeah, I don't think I have the link to the standard colors for this class yet. But what I can do, I go to pages. No, I'll have to make that available in this class. So for the time being, we'll just assign a different color other than one that's currently being used on the screen. So we're down here. It says use the smart dimension tool to dimension the two-dimensional representation of the part. We've done that. Use the extrude tool to create a solid model of the part. So I'll go back into Mastercam. And before I create the solid model, let's change the solid color to something that isn't being used on the screen, or something we haven't used in this session of Mastercam. So this is the wireframe color. The icon next to it is a solid color. Expand that. I'm going to set it to this blue color right here. So it's, let's see here, 7 rows over, or 7 columns over, and then 4 rows down. It's this blue color right here. It's not, you don't have to use the exact colors that I use. I use these colors because it makes it a little bit easier for me to see with my current background color. I don't like to assign the same color to all entities on my screen. So I've selected this blue color for my solid model. We're now going to create our base feature for our solid. I'll go to the solids tab. In the create section, I'll select extrude. And this is the first time we're seeing this thing called the wireframe chaining dialog box, or the chaining dialog box. So mine came up as the wireframe chaining. Yours might be solid chaining. For the mode, select this icon, wireframe. Select C-plane. And then for the selection method, select the upper left icon, chain. So mode is set to wireframe. I have C-plane selected. And then for selection method, I have chain selected. Once you set those 3 items, inside of your graphics area, left click on one of the lines that represents the outside profile of the part. So I'm going to select this line right here. When I left click on it, you'll notice that all connected entities become selected. This is called wireframe chaining. So what you can do, if you have a profile that consists of different types of geometry, lines, arcs, a thing called splines, and as long as they chain together using this tool, if you left click on one of the items, all connected entities become selected. So once you have the outside profile of your part selected, select OK. You'll see the extrusion being created on your screen, and it's using the default settings. The default settings being extruding in the positive direction, or the positive Z, for a distance of 1 inch. You need to make some changes to these settings. Let's start by flipping the direction of the extrusion. This icon right here, this green or blue and red arrow right here, this will flip the direction. Select it. It changes the direction of the extrusion. You can now see that the wireframe geometry is sitting on the top of the extrusion, and the coordinate system is also sitting on the top. That's what I want. It's still too thick. The distance is set to the default amount. In the distance field, type in 0.188 and then hit enter. it should now look like our part. It should now look like the outside or the base feature of our part. From here, I'll select OK. I'll right click on my screen. I'll select isometric. I'll right click and then I'll select fit. And then I'll right click and I'll select unzoom by 80%. And I'll save my work. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Nice. Okay.
Can you go over changing the thickness again? How did you change the dimension?
How did I change it? No problem. Let me delete that. So if I go to solids, extrude, select the outside edge, everything becomes selected. I'll select OK. So for the thickness, the default length or distance is 1 inch. This is what you're seeing right there. So it's under distance. What I did is I highlighted the value in that field and I typed in 0.188. And that number came off of the blueprint in the side view. So if I look at the blueprint, the side view is the this dimension defines the thickness of our part, that 0.188.
Got it.
Nice.
But once you accept the changes you've made, you can't modify it. You have to delete it and then redo it, right?
No. You do have some ability to modify an existing solid. So let's say I wanted this to be 0.5 instead of 0.188 or 0.375 instead of 0.18, something like that. You have to go to your solids manager. So you're going to go to view. In the manager section, you'll select solids. And if you're familiar with some of the other CAD softwares that are out there, they might refer to this as the feature manager. Expand the solid. Select the extrusion. Right click, edit parameters. Then it gets you back to this dialog box and I can change this to 0.5. But in this case, I want it to be 0.188, hit enter, and then I'll select OK. And then you see how it's highlighted, just click or select the top level solid and you're back to where you started. So you can change the thickness of a solid after you create it to a certain degree.
Got it, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm going to minimize that one. So we've got our base feature. We need to create the holes that go into the part. Now there's different ways we could have done this. We could have used the same extrude tool to cut away the area of the rectangular shape where the circles reside. Let me show you that way, and then I'll show you the other way. So I've got these holes that I need to create in the part. If I go to solids again, same tool, extrude. It brings up the wireframe chaining dialog box. Once again, the mode is set to wireframe, C-plane is selected, and method is chain. I'm going to pick select all of these circles. This is a little tedious, but I'm going to quickly select the 20 circles or 16 circles.
How are you doing that? Shift?
I'm just pick selecting them.
Oh,
Yeah, just left click on them. You don't need to hold the shift key down. And if you want to deselect them, actually, you got to use this icon right here. It's changed up a little bit. There we go. So now I'm just clicking on the selection. See this unselect? There is a quicker tool, chain similar. Select that one, and then window select. Yeah, so we'll talk about that more later. But for now, I'm just going to individually select all of these circles. Once you have them all selected, select OK. When we created our base feature, we used create body. That was the only option available to us. This time, we're going to use cut body. And when we use cut body, you see it cut the holes through the part. You could also use add boss. This is another option we could use. If I use the add boss, then flip the direction, we get this something like this going on. But that's not what this part is calling for. So I select cut body, change the direction, and then set the distance to through all. Even though the holes went through, because the distance was set to 0.18, I like to use the through all method, just in case we come back in and change the thickness of the part. This will update automatically. So once I've got the holes in the part, I'll select OK. We now have the 16 holes in the part. That is one method. Let me show you another method. To delete the existing circles in the part or existing holes in the part, I'll go back to the solids manager. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. The part is good the way it is. I'm just going to show you an additional method. So I'll go to the solids manager. To delete the cut or the circular cuts in the part, I can just right click on the extruded cut. I can select delete. They haven't disappeared yet, and you're also seeing a red X on my solid. So I need to regenerate the solid. So regen selected items. And now I don't have those holes in the part anymore. So that's one method of creating the holes in this part. I'm going to use a slightly different method. I'm going to use a tool that's in the solids tab or under the solids tab. So I'll go to solids. In the create section, I'll select hole. It says use panel to modify hole settings. Let's see here for the type. We could name it for now. Let's say simple. In the position, so use panel to modify hole settings. I'm going to select this icon, add position. And then I'm going to select this circle. And I'm going to continue working my way around. And every time I select one of these circles, you'll see a point appear at the center of the selected circle. Once you have them all selected, hit enter. And you see the holes appear. They are currently set to a different diameter, or they're not the correct diameter. In the diameter field, type in 0.201. And you'll see them update. Now, the nice thing about this tool is you have other options than creating a simple hole. We can create counterbore holes, countersunk holes. It's a more powerful tool. It gives us more options. In this particular case, all I need is a 0.201 diameter hole going to the part. So 0.201 for the distance or depth, I'll set it to through all. And then I'll select OK. From here, I'll look at it from an isometric view. And I'll save my work.
Could you show me again how to select the holes individually? It's not letting me select the.
Yeah, not a problem. So if, I'll delete these. I'll rebuild my solid. So are you using the whole tool?
Yeah, the whole tool. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you don't have any existing holes in the part?
No, it looks exactly like that. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so from the solids tab, select the whole tool. And what you need to do is you need to select this icon right here, add position.
Oh, okay.
And then you're going to pick select the circles. And as you pick select them, you'll see a center point appear at the center of the selected circle. And once you select all of them, once you see the points on all of them, just hit enter. Then when you hit enter, you should see a preview of the holes being created. They might not be the correct diameter yet. So for the hole style, set it to type to simple. And then the diameter, change that to 0.201. And then for the depth, set it to through all. And then select OK.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Let's do this. Look at it from an isometric view. save your work. I'll go back to the project page and we are looking at step 8. Use the curve all edges tool to create the wireframe representation of the part. Okay. Go back to your level manager. So I'm inside of Mastercam, go to your level manager. Make the solid support geometry level invisible. And this is important. I'm going to demonstrate something real quick. And it's basically a fail-safe, or it's a procedure that we use to protect the solid model. This particular solid model is dependent on the geometry that defines it. So what I do is I create a level called solid support geometry, and anything that's used to create the solid model is going to reside on that level. And once I'm done creating the solid model, I'm going to make that level invisible so I can protect it. The whole meaning of the idea behind it is to protect the wireframe geometry from being altered or deleted. Watch what happens if I select this line and try to delete it. So I select this line, do not do this. I select this line, and then I go to home, delete. We get this warning. It says deleting a referenced entity. Some of the geometry selected is associated to a toolpath, solid, or a plane. Deleting this geometry will permanently alter those operations. Anytime you see this dialog box, don't select either of these entities. Just hit the red X. Just get out of this, get out of here. What it's telling us is that something that we're trying to delete is being used to support some other piece of geometry or another tool or another entity inside of Mastercam. And in this case, it's used to define the solid model. So I'm going to exit out of here, and it's not going to delete that edge or delete that line. I'm going to make that level invisible. Something is less likely to be altered or deleted when it's on an invisible level. I'm going to make the wireframe from solid level the active level. And then I'm going to change the wireframe color again. Go to the Home tab. From the wireframe color palette. So select the wireframe color icon. From the palette, change the color to, I'm going to change this gold color right here. Any wireframe color, any wireframe geometry that we create will now take on this color, and it will be placed on this level. I'm going to use a curve all edges tool to create a 3D representation of this part using wireframe geometry. So what does that mean? Go to the wireframe tab. In the curve section, I use curve all edges. Select that tool. Mastercam is prompting us to select the geometry. I'm going to use the very last option, triple click to select the solid body. So on the solid model, if I triple click, this can be a little difficult. If you do it correctly, the entire part becomes selected. You'll see the entire part take on this glowing yellow look. So once the part is complete, once the entire part is completely selected, I'll select end selection. You'll see the edges of the part. It appears as if they're being highlighted. And what Mastercam is doing is creating wireframe geometry on all the edges of the solid model. I'll select OK. You can now see you got wireframe geometry on the edges of our solid. If I make the solid model level invisible, you can see that 3D representation of the part built from wireframe geometry. Now I like to have the solid model and the wireframe from solid visible when I'm working inside of Mastercam. So I'll make both these levels visible. I'll look at it from an isometric view. I'll fit my screen, and then I'll unzoom by 80%.